Muamua, which is an object that we detected in space that you believe could possibly have been extraterrestrial.
Astronomers were excited to discover the interstellar object last year. It was named Oumuamua.
Attention everyone. Oumuamua, a mysterious entity, is on a collision course with Earth and will hit in just 2 weeks. Discovered in 2017, this strange, elongated object has stressed the scientists and sparked wild theories, including some about powerful aliens spying on humanity. This object from deep space, possibly an alien probe, is heading right towards us. We're not ready for this. Our space technology can't handle such dangerous visitors. Is it going to be lethal? Join us as we prepare for the direct impact of Oumuamua, a close encounter with our alien guest. Let's dive into the story of Oumuamua, the mysterious visitor from beyond our solar system that keeps everyone talking. You might recall Oumuamua as that odd, long-shaped thing that zoomed into our solar neighborhood around October 2017. It grabbed attention worldwide, not just from scientists, but from just about everyone, because it didn't act like anything we'd ever seen before. This object was like a wake-up call from the cosmos, a reminder that space can still baffle the smartest minds and throw our expectations out the window. Oumuamua seemed like it jumped right out of a science fiction story, making a grand entrance from the depths of space and challenging our ideas of what's floating out there. It sparked endless discussions and theories. Imagine the range of thoughts it inspired, from serious scientific hypotheses to the kind of wild stories you'd only hear in a conspiracy theorist's dream. It turned into a screen onto which people projected all their fears, fascinations, and fantasies about aliens. Some folks were convinced that this cigar-like rock was some sort of cosmic Trojan horse, bringing either doom or discovery to Earth, stirring up all kinds of apocalyptic or transformative scenarios based on the flavor of the month on social media. Then there's the spooky idea of alien probes, a concept that's been floating around our minds since the times when being abducted by aliens was only talked about on late-night shows and not taken seriously by scientists. But now, here we are, actually considering that Oumuamua might be one of those probes, a silent watcher, a messenger from beyond our solar system, maybe even starting a one-sided or two-sided conversation with the rest of the universe, if we ever figure out how to respond. Let's take a moment to appreciate the work of people like Avi Loeb, a really smart scientist who studies things like plasma physics and is super curious about the secrets of space. He's been a big voice in suggesting that Oumuamua could be something made by intelligent beings from another place in the universe. His ideas remind us that when we send spacecraft like Voyager and New Horizons out beyond our planet, we're trying to connect with the vast universe. And if we can send objects out into space, who's to say beings from other worlds couldn't do the same? But here's where things get tricky, folks. Even with all our enthusiasm and the brave efforts of some dedicated scientists, we're still bumping up against the big challenges of exploring space. Our technology is pretty cool, but it's not yet good enough to send us to other stars and bring us back home again. It's not just about making a space probe that can last for such a long trip. The real problem is how to cross the huge distances out there. These distances are so huge, in fact, that calling them light years doesn't even start to cover it. Just think about how bold it would be to try to send a probe from the Andromeda Galaxy to Earth. That's a trip of about 2.5 million light years. It's such a huge distance that it's hard for us to really understand it. But imagine that somewhere far away in space, there's a civilization that has figured it all out. Maybe they know how to use wormholes, or they've invented warp drives, or they've come up with other incredible ways to travel through space that we can only think about in science fiction right now. Even if these imagined space engineers from other planets are way ahead of us in building stuff, they still have a really big challenge. They need to figure out how to make a space probe that can handle all the tough things out there in space. Imagine space as a very harsh place, filled with all sorts of dangers. These engineers would need to come up with materials that are super strong and can take a lot of hits. These materials need to be so tough that they can handle the high-energy blasts from cosmic rays and keep going even when they get hit by lots of tiny bits of space rocks and dust flying around at incredibly fast speeds. In the world of materials science, which is all about studying and creating materials, people are always talking about how important it is for materials to be tough and resilient. That means they want materials that can bend a little without breaking, but also be strong enough to not fall apart when they get hit. But here's an interesting twist. Diamonds, which we often think of as the hardest things out there, are actually not great for this. Sure, they're super hard, but they can also shatter pretty easily if you hit them the right way. It's kind of funny when you think about it. The thing we often consider the ultimate in toughness isn't really all that tough in every way. Oumuamua's silence and unique shape keep challenging us, revealing more puzzles as we go along. Decoding the story of an interstellar visitor. Now let's talk about Oumuamua, this really interesting visitor from another star system that zoomed through our solar system back in the autumn of 2017. Its arrival was a huge deal in the world of space and stars, but not in a loud or flashy way. Instead, scientists all over the planet were quietly amazed. This small, mysterious thing, which got the name First Eye or Oumuamua, was special because the first eye means it was the first object from beyond our solar system that we've ever seen close to home. It was like a message in a bottle from far away, making everyone think about the vastness of space and what lies beyond our own sun and planets. It was a really important moment because it made us realize just how big and full of secrets the universe is. But even with all this excitement, what we actually saw wasn't as dramatic as some people had hoped. For a long time, people who study the stars, known as astronomers, had been sitting night after night, looking through their big telescopes, just hoping to see something from a different star system. So when Thomas Zurbuchen announced in 2017 that we had finally found real proof that these kinds of objects existed, it felt like a huge moment, like opening a door to a room we never knew was there. But then, when Oumuamua finally showed up, it was a bit of a letdown for some. We were all expecting something like the comets we're used to, with bright tails stretching out behind them. But Oumuamua didn't look like that at all. It didn't have a tail or the fuzzy cloud around it that comets usually have. And then, just 2 years later in 2019, we saw another visitor called Two-Eye or Borisov. This one did have the tail and the cloud called a coma, which made it look more like the comets we're used to. Next to Borisov, Oumuamua seemed even more unusual. It didn't have the things we expected. It didn't fit the pattern. First, people thought Oumuamua was long and thin like a giant space cigar. But then they started to think maybe it was more flat and wide, like a pancake spinning through the void of space. This change made Oumuamua even more intriguing. It wasn't just another space rock. It was something completely different, something that didn't match up with the usual comet crowd. It became an even bigger mystery, a unique object among the usual space wanderers. Lots of people have different ideas about where Oumuamua came from and what it's made of. Some think it was thrown out from a faraway group of planets, maybe because it flew too close to big planets and got flung away, or maybe it got kicked out because of a big crash between giant space rocks. Guessing about these things is a bit like trying to solve a really big space puzzle, but we only have a few of the pieces, so it's pretty tough. But even though Oumuamua is really confusing, it's also super helpful because it gives us clues about what other solar systems might be like. It's like a strange piece from another part of space that's ended up here and made us think a lot about all the unknown stuff out there beyond our own solar system. Now, talking about its size and shape, Oumuamua looks kind of flat and long, like a pancake, and we figured this out because of how its light changes as it spins around in space. This is really weird and interesting. We saw another space object called Arrokoth, which the New Horizons spacecraft visited, and some other things floating around beyond Pluto that kind of look similar, so maybe Oumuamua isn't as odd as we first thought. But even though it might not be totally unique, its quick trip through our solar system really made us think and wonder about the bigger universe. In the huge, dark space between the stars, we still don't really know where Oumuamua came from. It's like a big space mystery that's just out of reach, making us super curious but also a bit frustrated because it's hard to figure out. In 2018, some really smart space scientists worked super hard to track back Oumuamua's trip through space to try and figure out where it came from. They looked back in time to its close call with the sun a million years ago and traced it to where it might have been, near some stars. They found 4 stars that could have been part of Oumuamua's past, and one of them, a not-so-famous star called HIP 3757, seemed like it might have been a special meeting point. But we're still not sure if Oumuamua used to belong to that star system, or if it's just been traveling all alone through space for a really long time. It's a puzzle that a lot of people find really exciting to think about and try to solve. NASA tried really hard to make sense of this unusual visitor from another star system by using animations to show us how it moved through space. This thing, called Oumuamua, moved so fast and in such a straight line, like a car speeding down a highway without caring about the speed limit, that even the sun's powerful pull couldn't make it stick around. Most space rocks and balls of ice we see, like comets and asteroids, go around the sun like they're on a big circular racetrack, but not Oumuamua. It was like a rebellious racer, zooming by at an incredible 196,000 miles per hour, saying no thanks to the idea of hanging around our star. Rob Warwick, a smart scientist from the University of Hawaii, was the one who noticed Oumuamua, but he only spotted it after it had already zoomed past us and was starting to leave our solar system. By the time he found it, Oumuamua had already come really close to Earth. Well, close in space terms, which means it was 15 to 21 million miles away. But in the vastness of space, that's like being in the neighborhood. But Oumuamua didn't stay long. It was like a special guest star on a TV show, here for a quick moment and then gone. As it moved away from us, it got faster, helped along by a little push from the sun's gravity. Even with our best space cameras, like the Hubble Space Telescope, we could only keep it in sight for so long. Hubble followed Oumuamua as it moved away, taking pictures that were amazing, but also kind of frustrating because Oumuamua just looked like a tiny dot against the huge, starry sky. Now it's heading towards the constellation Pegasus, moving beyond the reach of our telescopes and leaving us with lots of questions. We're all wondering, will it ever come back? Was it just a strange, rocky traveler? Or could it have been something made by aliens, silently checking out our solar system as it passed through? As we explore Oumuamua's mysteries, new theories emerge, pushing the boundaries of our understanding. Oumuamua Dark Side, Beyond the Hubble. The story of Oumuamua is like a space mystery novel, telling us about a lonely traveler from the stars, thrown out by the strong pull of giant planets far away, a stranger kicked out from its own home in the cosmos. Before we met Oumuamua, everyone who studies the stars thought that if we ever saw something from another star system, it would look like a comet, a big icy rock that starts to melt and throw off steam and dust to make a shiny tail as it gets close to the sun. But Oumuamua didn't fit this picture at all. It was quiet, moving through space without making a fuss, without the bright tail we expected. This made everyone wonder, was it just an old comet that had run out of ice to make its tail? Or was it something even stranger? Out there in the huge, dark sea of space, the Hubble Space Telescope, our trusty watchman among the stars, caught sight of Oumuamua as it was moving away from the heat of our sun. This was no ordinary space wanderer. While comets love to show off, throwing off gas and dust to create dazzling tails as they leave the sun's warmth, Oumuamua kept to itself, not giving away any signs that it was a comet. There was no spewing of water or dust, no dramatic trailing tail. It was a space object with a secret. Then, 2 creative scientists from Arizona State University, Alan Jackson and Steve Desch, came up with a new and bold idea. They wondered if Oumuamua could be a lost piece of nitrogen ice, like a space version of an iceberg, thrown into the galaxy from a big explosion on a distant world similar to Pluto. Try to picture a huge, icy chunk silently floating through the darkness of space, moving not because it's throwing off water like a typical comet, but maybe, just maybe, because it's slowly letting go of nitrogen. They're asking us to imagine that the gentle warmth of the sun, even from far away, could be enough to start turning that frozen nitrogen into gas, pushing Oumuamua through the void like a quiet, icy ghost. This idea gets its spark from the New Horizons spacecraft, which took some sneaky looks at Pluto and found big areas covered in nitrogen ice, like the big flat area called Sputnik Planum. Thinking about what they saw on Pluto, these scientists suggest that Oumuamua might be kind of like a big ice cube floating through space, shining bright because it reflects about 64% of the sunlight that hits it, which is a lot. But for this idea to make sense, Oumuamua would have to be pretty small, much smaller than we first thought, to look as faint as it does when we see it with our telescopes. Jackson and Desch have done the math and say that if Oumuamua is really made of this shiny nitrogen ice, it could be about 148 feet long, 144 feet wide, and 25 feet thick. That's smaller than a football field. But then there's a new twist in the story from Daryl Seligman and Jennifer Bergner, who are from Cornell and Berkeley universities. They have their own thoughts about Oumuamua's trip near the sun. They don't think it was all wild and crazy with lots of melting and breaking apart. Instead, they think it was a calm and gentle visit that made hydrogen gas slowly drift away. This gentle loss of hydrogen could be why Oumuamua moved through space the way it did. Their idea is all about how the ice inside Oumuamua could change when it gets warmed up by the sun, but not too hot. They think this could help explain why we didn't see a tail of dust. Maybe all that dust was stuck inside the ice and couldn't get out. And there's yet another idea, this time from Avi Loeb and S.E. Chimbiali at Harvard University. They suggest that Oumuamua is something even more special and strange. Instead of just a lost piece of ice from another world, they think it could be something we've never seen before, something that's not just another regular space rock or ice ball. Every one of these theories, from the nitrogen ice chunk to the strange new kind of object, shows us that Oumuamua is a real space mystery. It's like a piece from a space puzzle that doesn't seem to fit anywhere in the picture we have of our universe right now. Each idea adds to the story of Oumuamua, turning it into a mystery that's more and more intriguing as we try to figure out where it fits in the big space picture. In the quiet study rooms of Harvard University, astronomers Avi Loeb and S.E. Chimbiali have come up with a bold idea that seems more at home in a sci-fi movie marathon than in a science journal. They suggest that Oumuamua, the strange object speeding through our solar system, is not just another piece of space debris on a leisurely journey. Instead, they propose it's a spacecraft powered by the sun. That's right. While we're still figuring out how to better use solar energy here on Earth, these researchers are suggesting that a distant alien civilization might already be zipping around the stars using technology similar to what powers our everyday gadgets like calculators and watches. The weird things about Oumuamua, how it speeds up, its missing comet tail, and its odd shape and size, all make sense to these astronomers if we think of it as something made, not born from natural cosmic processes. But here's the catch. Our best view of Oumuamua is as fuzzy as a photo taken in the middle of a dust storm. So these scientists have to use their smarts and guesses based on Oumuamua's shininess and how it reflects sunlight to figure out what it might be like. They use what they know about other space stuff, like asteroids and comets, to try and guess Oumuamua's size and what it's made of. The saga of Oumuamua defies our standard scientific expectations, leading us into uncharted territory. What if Oumuamua isn't a comet at all? The mystery gets even more interesting when we think about the fact that Oumuamua didn't seem to be releasing gas and dust like a comet does. This is really important because if it were releasing gas, that could make it speed up and also change the way it spins. And if it changed its spin, the astronomers watching it would have definitely noticed. It would be super obvious. But Oumuamua kept spinning in the same way, not changing at all, which made the scientists think that maybe it wasn't a comet after all. S.E. Chimbiali came up with another idea that maybe Oumuamua was pushed out into space by something else a long time ago. But this idea doesn't hold up very well because Oumuamua kept speeding up in a way that didn't match just being pushed once and left alone. Then we start thinking about the sun's role in all of this. Imagine the sun as a sort of behind-the-scenes helper for Oumuamua, pushing it along on its journey. The scientists at Harvard have this really out-there idea that if Oumuamua is really, really thin, like thinner than a credit card, then the light from the sun could actually push it enough to explain its weird movement through space. Jumping from seeing something thin moving in a strange way to saying it's definitely a spaceship from another world is a huge leap. But that's what these astronomers are suggesting. Oumuamua might be like a super advanced sailboat, but instead of using wind, it uses light from the sun or other stars to move. They look at the early experiments we humans have done, like the Icaros probe by Japan, NASA's tiny nanosail D2, and the LightSail project by the Planetary Society. These are all baby steps we're taking to try out this light sail idea. So these Harvard folks are thinking, what if Oumuamua is an example of this kind of technology but way more advanced, from a place many, many light years away? They're really excited about this possibility, but even Avi Loeb and Essie Chimbiali aren't 100% sure they're right. They're saying that if Oumuamua is a light sail, it could have traveled more than 16,000 light years to visit us. That's a huge distance, suggesting there might be beings out there with technology way more advanced than anything we have. But this is all guessing and wondering. They're not saying they know for sure. And that leaves us in a spot that's both exciting and a bit frustrating. Just like the best sci-fi stories, Oumuamua has left us with a giant puzzle. It's a piece of the universe that dropped by to say hi, leaving us to wonder about its story, where it came from, and what other secrets the universe might be hiding. Enveloped in the fascinating concept of visits from outer space, the idea that we might have been visited by something from beyond our planet leads to a storm of wild guesses and creative ideas that could match the most imaginative stories in science fiction. We should think about this with a mix of doubt and slight disbelief, focusing on the story of what's believed to be an alien object. Whether it's an unexpected visitor from the deep corners of space, or just some random space debris that ended up in our area of the stars. This thought varies between two extremes: the exciting possibility of an active space probe from another civilization coming to look at our solar system, and the boring reality of it being merely leftover space trash. As Loeb points out, the mere finding of this object, named Oumuamua, bordered on the miraculous, almost defying what we'd expect by chance alone. Accepting Loeb's reasoning, we'd have to believe in a universe packed with objects traveling between stars, with each star in our Milky Way throwing out an unbelievable 1,000 trillion of these things over its life. This number, based on calculations made by Loeb and his colleagues 10 years ago, is hard to believe. It seems our own solar system isn't quite so active in sending out Oumuamua-like objects. Furthermore, the path this object took, getting close to what we call the local standard of rest, which is like a common movement pattern for our part of the Milky Way, makes its story even more puzzling. This vague past story is just what people who love alien theories need, even though there's no real proof to support such ideas. The unfortunate reality is that with the rockets we have now, we can't catch Oumuamua as it leaves our solar system any more than we can jump to another galaxy. With every chapter, Oumuamua has been redefining our cosmic perspectives, offering lessons from the vast unknown. Can we build a ship fast enough for space rocks? But we humans are hopeful creatures by nature, always dreaming about the next big adventure. We imagine sending a robot out into space, equipped with giant sails, zooming off faster than anything before it. This dream keeps projects like Breakthrough Starshot going. They're aiming super high, planning to reach the stars even though they're not quite sure when they'll make it happen. It doesn't really matter if we catch up to Oumuamua or not. What's important is what we learn along the way, and that we're better prepared for the next unexpected visitor from space. Oumuamua's surprise visit has been full of questions and a goldmine for wild guesses. But more than anything, it should be a loud wake-up call for everyone who looks up at the stars. It's telling us to keep our eyes open wider, to look harder, and to study all those strange, mysterious objects that we can see from here. If Oumuamua or something like it comes by again, we start dreaming even bigger. We think about building our own spaceships, figuring out the secrets of dark energy, and maybe one day starting up a spaceship factory like in the stories, something out of a galaxy far, far away. The whole conversation is wrapped up in the excitement of facing the unknown. We're basing all our talks and plans on the belief that we've really seen something new, something totally out of the ordinary. This jump into the unknown, while it fires up our imaginations and makes us dream of chasing stars, also shines a light on a bigger story. It's about our never-ending drive to know more, to understand everything around us, and the never-dying hope that keeps us reaching for the stars, even when we're still trying to figure out all the mysteries and questions that lie in the darkness of space. Taking a bold step beyond what we know and can do, some people are thinking about something that feels like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie, chasing an asteroid with a spaceship. This idea, as exciting as it sounds, is incredibly tough, almost like a task fit for a superhero. The asteroid, called Oumuamua, is speeding through space faster than any other natural thing we know. It's moving so fast that it will shoot past Saturn in just 2 years. This speed is a huge deal because we've never made anything that can travel that fast in space. So the big puzzle is figuring out what kind of spaceship could possibly catch up with such a fast-moving space rock. Going into space is really hard. It's not just about leaving Earth. It's about fighting against the planet's gravity, which pulls everything back down. Breaking free from this pull requires a ton of energy and fuel. Once a spaceship manages to leave Earth behind, the next big question is, how do we get it to move across the enormous, empty stretches of space to reach something as far away as Oumuamua? We're thinking about using solar sails, which are kind of like big, light-catching sheets that use sunlight to push the spacecraft forward. This idea is pretty new and still a bit out of reach, but it's within the world of things we're starting to understand. Then there are wormholes, those shortcuts through space that you see in all the space adventure stories. They're fascinating and would be super handy for traveling long distances quickly, but they're also full of problems. There are 3 big reasons why we can't use wormholes right now, even if we really wanted to. First, they have a bad habit of closing when you least expect it, which would be a real problem if you were trying to travel through one. Second, they seem more interested in connecting to completely different universes than just hopping to another place in our own galaxy, which isn't very helpful. And third, we really have no idea how to make one, even if we could get past the other 2 problems. So while the idea of using a wormhole sounds amazing, it's way beyond what we can actually do right now. Trying to bring our space dreams a bit closer to what we can really do, the idea from the famous thinker Freeman Dyson to use the asteroid belt as a sort of space station seems a bit more possible than total fantasy. He dreamed up a way to travel in space that feels like smoothly sliding along on those moving walkways at airports. One idea that comes up in this dreaming is something called a warp bubble. This fancy term is about making a kind of bubble in space that could move a spaceship by stretching space behind it and squeezing it in front, just like surfing a wave in the ocean. But here's where things get really tricky. To make a warp bubble, you'd need something called negative mass, which is a super weird and hard to grasp idea. Even harder to swallow is the fact that to move a spaceship that's not even very big, you'd need a crazy amount of this strange stuff, like as much as the whole planet Jupiter. As we dig deeper into these big, brainy ideas, the reality of building a warp engine to power our space rides is tangled up in a bunch of tough science problems and practical hurdles. Trying to unlock the secrets of space and really use them is like walking through a maze that has more questions popping up than exits. This leaves us in a spot where we're amazed by all the cool things that could be, but we also have to face how huge the gap is between what we dream about and what we can actually do right now. In this big adventure, we're like explorers standing at the edge of a massive canyon, looking out into the dark, filled with excitement, but also a bit cautious, as we think about how we might one day jump across to the other side in our journey to explore and maybe even master the unknown stretches of space. Is Oumuamua a mere cosmic wanderer? Or is there a darker, more urgent message behind its relentless approach? Share your thoughts and theories below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates on this unfolding space saga.